this on? Everybody can hear me pretty good? Okay, we'll start with the scripture readings for this morning. And our first one is going to be out of Romans chapter 12, verse 8. The one who exhorts in his exhortation, the one who contributes in generosity, the one who does act of mercy with cheerfulness. We also have a reading out of Hebrews. There we go, chapter 10, verses 24 and 25. And let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. The first part of our message is going to focus on the Roman section there. And this week's message continues along the lines of spiritual gifts. Encouragement is a gift that God uses to strengthen his people sometimes when things are hard, adversity sets in, and quite frankly, sometimes people want to quit. And when we as Christians do our best to biblically encourage one another, and those others that are not inside of these walls, that can literally be the thing that either someone sees who does not follow Christ and begins to ponder, or it can be the thing that bonds even tighter within this room. Encouragement can look different depending on who the encourager is and who the person is being encouraged. Encouragement from a football coach to a young man, I would assume, would look very different than a grandmother to a young girl. And encouragement can be given in times of grief, moments of suffering. It can also be given in times of great effort, someone stepping out into faith and trusting the Lord for an outcome. And it can be subtle, and in the moment you almost miss it, but it rolls around in your brain forever. My brother, when Bree and I started dating, he reminded me how often that my future wife was almost 6 feet tall and that I was not. And on the day we got married, he was my best man. In his best man speech, he said, "This is such an encouraging day for Joe because the top shelves in your house will finally get to be used." It wasn't wrong, you know. So today we're going to look at what the fruit of encouragement produces and why the church needs encouragement, and finally what that looks like in real life. When it comes to the fruit that encouragement produces, it's kind of starting this message with the end state in mind. What we want to see come from encouragement inside of our church bodies and inside of our families and in our community. And we look at that verse in Romans. Paul was writing to Christians in Rome, and he knew that they were a very diverse group, and he was providing guidance for them in how to go about their spiritual gifts and how to use the gift once they had identified it. The one who exhorts in his exhortation. Now the word exhortation, the Greek word for that means to call to one side, coming beside someone to help them grow. And I actually just Googled biblical exhortation to see what kind of a definition it would give me. And it said to urgently advise, encourage, or strengthen fellow believers in their walk with God. Now this is one of those concepts that's easy to kind of conceptualize, but somewhat neglect to break it down into what does that mean. And the first thing that means is strengthening someone spiritually. Now I know that the gift of encouragement for some people can be way more of a gift than it is for others. But strengthening somebody spiritually can have many different looks. You might be someone who is so knowledgeable about the Bible and so knowledgeable about the messages God has for us that you can leverage that knowledge, clear things up, and have really meaningful conversations with people. I can think of many different people through my life who, even through their actions or a lot of times through conversations that are burned into my memory, I had many light bulb moments with someone who had a deeper understanding than I did in a lot of those situations. And that has helped me grow to the point through their exhortation. And a lot of times it can be through those people that are not knowledgeable. Helping someone can grow in their spirituality can actually be also a note, a card, something like that, as small as that just lets someone know that you're there and you're praying for them. Urging someone as they move forward is another form of exhortation. And as a younger person, for me, that usually meant like in a physical sense, in training or competitions with all my college friends. But as we've gotten older, and the problems that we had in our college days have become way more trivial, for some people in some seasons of life, Finding a reason to get out of bed in the morning can be the biggest mountain that they've ever faced. And nowadays, it seems like sometimes we talk over and over and over about mental health. And for those whose faith is in the foundation of everything that we believe to be true about our existence and why we're here, sometimes we maybe don't connect or empathize very well with people that don't have that foundation of truth and purpose. Throughout my experiences in the military and in college, I've been really close friends with many different people, a lot of whom are not Christians, and a few of them have gone through some really crazy stuff. A guy in my unit that I've known for a really long time, he's battled crippling drug and alcohol addiction, which spills over into an extremely volatile marriage. And sometimes he's gained and lost 50 pounds several times since I've known him. And there's times when I see him that I can just see it in his face that he is defeated and in the dirt. And there are people in our own community of Polson that battle that exact same thing. And so far in their lifetime, the world has absolutely chewed them up and spit them out. And if I'm being 100% honest, if I didn't have the faith and that I was here for a reason and that God had a plan for me, I'm not sure how I could continue if that was where I was at a point in my life. Because even with our faith that we have and share, moments like that are hard to get through. We experience debilitating illness, we lose loved ones, and we need encouragement and exhortation from those around us. This might be a bad example, but sometimes we talk about our faith armor, like the armor that a knight wears. And I love movies. I love movies a ton. And I quote movies a lot because it's really funny in life situations. I'm married to someone who doesn't love movies, and sometimes she just rolls her eyes and looks at me when I do a movie quote, and I'm like, dude, somebody needs to tell my wife how funny I am. One of my favorite movies is A Knight's Tale with Heath Ledger. If you haven't seen it, it's about a knight who competes in jousting and sword fighting competitions. And at the end of the day, his squires, they help get his armor off. They get him cleaned up. They dress his wounds. They do any repair to his armor that's needed. They get him patched up and functional again. And then they get him back out to the next challenge. And each of us has had and will have those days of strife and grief and difficulty that we have to get up and face and move forward again. But hopefully we can do that with those of us who love us being alongside of us and giving our armor a spit shine and a repair and our ear an encouraging word and letting us know that we're not alone before we face the next challenge. The third thing that encouragement means is calling somebody higher. Encouraging and challenging someone to live up to their potential or fulfilling what it is God put them here on earth to do. Now that looks different for everybody, and it might not even be clear all the time. But what calling someone higher oftentimes looks like is holding somebody accountable, not because they haven't found God's charge for them, but because maybe they have veered off course and are not in a position to be open or even receptive to that call on their life. And this one can be a tough one because I, for one, have been angry and upset with someone because of their actions. And I have 100% been the person somebody was angry at because of my actions. And how many times in the Old Testament did we see God, through many different prophets and things, tell Israel and Judah how angry he was and what was going to happen to them if they clung to their wicked ways? He reminded them that they had forgotten what they were worth in his eyes and as human beings created in his image and loved by him. But he always capped off the message with how blessed they would be when they did turn back to him. Yeah. So sometimes when it comes to calling someone higher, it's difficult not to lead with anger. But make sure to always follow up with the reminder, do you know what you are worth to the God who created this universe? Act like it. So now, we know that encouragement means to strengthen somebody spiritually and urge somebody forward and call someone to their higher purpose. Here are 3 things that encouragement is not. The first one is encouragement is not flattery. I'm a sucker for kind words and flattery. That's how I know my wife wants something fixed around the house, right? But flattery is superficial and fleeting. Another thing that encouragement is not is a blindly positive personality. That's disconnected from reality, and more so than that, it's ridiculously annoying. I feel like we all know somebody, no matter what happens in their life, they're like, well, the sun comes out tomorrow, and you're like dude, it's super annoying. And as Christians, we can be a little bit guilty of passing other people's challenges on to God really easily. When you're not the one going through it, it's very easy to say, well, we're just going to give this to God. Well, yes, of course we're going to do that. That's our foundation, but we need a tangible thing sometimes, what need to move forward. And lastly, encouragement is not empty hype. You can't speak life into someone by saying that they're saying something that there's no evidence for. When Bree can't open a jar, I can't just say to her, you are so strong. Just open it. That's when my stuff ends up on the top shelf. And she buys a jar opener and I buy a stool, so it's fine. None of these false encouragements are from God. God's encouragements speak truth to us and they hold us accountable to what He will do through us. So, to reiterate, biblical extortion, sorry. That's a different sermon, I guess, I don't know. Yeah. Biblical exhortation is to call to one side, to urgently advise, encourage, or strengthen fellow believers in their walk with God. In the book of Acts, we see a man named Barnabas. His name was Joseph, but the apostles called him Barnabas, which means son of encouragement or son of exhortation. And this was a result of his willingness to counsel, provide money, and go alongside people in their calling to their higher purpose. We've all read the story of Saul before, but it really wasn't until I was kind of doing some research for this message that Barnabas just kind of flew out at me. Barnabas took Saul to the apostles, convinced Saul to become a missionary leader. The Saul that had spent his entire career persecuting Christians. And then Barnabas stepped aside when Saul somewhat kind of surpassed him as the best person to lead the church. He held Saul accountable with encouragement. The literal definition of the message, do you know what you're worth and what you're supposed to do? Act like it. That was his message to Saul through action and words. So now, why does the church itself need encouragement? Hebrews, those two verses in Hebrews chapter 10, 24 through 25 tells, and let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. Now, it's not completely clear, correct me if I'm wrong, who wrote the book of Hebrews, but some people think it was Barnabas, the one who encouraged Saul to step into his role. And at this time, Emperor Nero was persecuting Christians, making practicing their faith really risky business for them. And Hebrews is a letter of hope and help and encouragement. And if we look at that verse again, the key points of it are stirring one another to love and good works, meeting together, and encouraging each other as you see the day drawing near. The day meaning the returning of Christ. This letter says these things because people grow weary. And faith can fade in isolation, and pressure can make believers shrink back almost until they're hiding in the shadows, which I cannot believe is God's calling for us to do. And because we are sinful human beings, sinful bodies in a sinful world, that means that even the most steadfast among us will grow weary at times. And there's the trials and tribulations that people can go through, including like there's loss and grief, idolatry. Someone will sin against you. You will sin against someone else. And in those moments, we will all experience weariness. And if we're isolated and not in community with each other, faith can be very hard to cling to. And then when you look at the outside pressure that Christians face, and Hebrews is written to those who were facing those outside pressures, it can be tempting to shrink back and not be bold in our faith. So being there for each other, not only in this body and our fellowship, but also our fellowship with Christians elsewhere, and intentionally encouraging each other, it can mitigate the likelihood of somebody drifting away. It stirs up love and good works because when you see and you feel others being encouraged and you see people doing good works for each other, it's contagious and it spreads throughout a church body. And it keeps us connected, keeps us in tune with what's going on in each other's lives. It's often been said that if you were aware of the battles that everyone was fighting, you would be much more gentle in your thoughts and your deeds towards them. In that lens, we look at the early church in Hebrews, and when you do some research and find out that Emperor Nero was feeding Christians to lions, does that make your heart soften towards them a little bit? It's easy to kind of see that they were shrinking into the shadows and stuff, but then the details of their persecution hopefully make us feel like the author of Hebrews and think, man, they need encouragement right now. If any church was in need of exhortation, somebody to step alongside them in faith and help them keep in stride, to clean their armor, to tend to their spiritual wounds, or physical wounds even, and get them back into their step in their faith that they need to be in. Now, how does encouragement look in real life? It means speaking truth with grace. I think we can all agree that the God that we're here to worship today together has significantly more authority than we do. And yet he has seen fit to give grace and forgive and hold each and every one of us accountable to his plan, no matter how much we've screwed it up to this point. Yeah. Keeping that in mind, sometimes we're in a position to speak a hard truth to somebody. And we need to remember that God's grace is not ours to give or not give, but it is ours to reflect, to lean into, and to use as encouragement. The moments in my life where I screwed up the most were the moments that the enemy was all over. I didn't need you to tell me how wrong I was. I didn't need you to tell me how stupid I was. I didn't need you to tell me how little thinking I had done. I very much knew all of those things. And my inner dialogue, you had nothing on it, I promise. So, encouragement in real life looks like showing up for those people when they are struggling. Maybe it's a struggle outside of their control. Maybe it's a struggle when they have been the one in the wrong. Because if anybody is like me in this building and you know you were in the wrong, that is a struggle on its own. And it doesn't always mean you have to use a lot of words. Sometimes, specifically in a crisis, your presence alone is what's needed. There are those moments where there's nothing that you're going to say that's going to make this moment any better. But you can physically be there and you can pray either with somebody or for somebody. Sometimes, encouragement also looks like calling out the potential in somebody. Not everyone is quick to grasp the scope of a gift that we might have. One more movie, Good Will Hunting. If you haven't seen the movie Good Will Hunting, it's about a genius, Matt Damon, and his best friend, Ben Affleck. And he's a literal genius, and both of them are kind of working these dead-end construction job. And phenomenal scene. Ben Affleck tells him, he says, hey, you're my best friend, so don't take this the wrong way, but in 20 years, if you're still living here, I'll kill you. It's two men talking to each other. The encouragement sometimes sounds a little rough once in a while. But he knows that his best friend would not be using a massive gift that he's been given. And so while your gift might be that of encouragement, that might be your gift, encouragement and exhortation, you'll probably have an eye for the gifts that other people have. And sometimes just a boost from someone else is all that's needed for a person to step in and accept the gifts that God's given them and use them to his glory. And while some of us might be particularly gifted in encouragement and exhortation, that does not mean that the rest of us cannot encourage one another. We can all provide encouragement for each other. And the three things that is important about encouragement is encouragement sometimes it comforts, encouragement sometimes corrects, but encouragement always builds. As a teacher, as a third grade teacher early in my career, I didn't do a good job of that early on. When you start a new career path and you graduate college, you're going to change the world, and kids are going to be angels in my classroom, and there's going to be no behavior issues, and 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds are just we're going to be awesome. So in the beginning, when I had to correct students, I don't think I did a good job of building upon that correction. And it hit me like a big wall when I realized that for some kids, little girls especially, being chastised wrecked their entire day. Tasks and things that they excelled in, they do terrible at after being chastised earlier in the day. So I realized that in a few circumstances, I had sacrificed the student's entire day to correct what in the grand scheme of things wasn't that big of an issue. So I tried really hard to improve my communication in those moments. And yes, the student would be aware that I was either disapproving or even angry with them, but I did my best to convey that, yes, I'm upset with you because you're better than what you showed. And while there might be a consequence, it's the consequence. Me being angry at you is not the consequence. We will face the consequence together, and I will encourage you through it. There is a path to redemption, and I want to make it 100% clear that I want you to succeed. The fix isn't me being angry with you and making sure that you know it. The fix is making sure that the flaw or sin is understood, the consequence is understood, and that I am on your side. And God tells us that every day. You might have to face consequences for your actions. But God and hopefully people in this room and other believers and family members will be there for you and move forward together to what they know is true about you. Now, the fundamental encouragement and exhortation to each of our individual walks with God today is this. If your eyes are on God and your heart is connected to Him, you will never be abandoned. Even in those times when you sin and stumble and put your own selfish thoughts, wishes, and worldly ambitions first, you will not be abandoned. Even when this world, through no doing of your own, chews you up, spits you out, takes people away from you, sins against you, you will not be abandoned. Even as Jesus' crucifixion was imminent, He promised to His disciples that they would have the Holy Spirit as a guide, ensured them of His abiding peace, and assured them that He would not leave them alone. And you can be encouraged by that same message today because it applies to you as well, that God will not leave you alone. And in our efforts to follow His example, we firstly do not quit on God because He has not quit on us, but we do not quit on each other either. Whether someone is living a lifestyle that we cannot support, whether someone is fighting demons that we cannot imagine, whether someone has answered the call of their gift and is living boldly with their eyes on God. Maybe somebody's stepping into seniors in high school. It's almost time to graduate high school. That is an exciting and terrifying time that needs encouragement. And we can come alongside each one of them in the ways that make sense and encourage them to keep their eyes on God. Because whether somebody is batting 1,000 or they're in the dirt, broken and bleeding, God does not quit on them. So I would encourage you today to leave here with these thoughts. Who needs your encouragement this week? Your spouse, your kids, your neighbors, your friends, your church leadership. You are in a position to offer all of those people encouragement in a way that your strengths lend you to do so. Yeah. Secondly, are your words building people up or tearing them down? Are you speaking life into people? Do your words and actions turn their eyes towards God? This can be tough when we're angry with someone, but try to have a mental check in those situations. Lastly, where is God asking you to step up and strengthen someone? Is someone struggling right now? Are they struggling with their health? Are they struggling with loss? And for a multitude of reasons, are they perhaps struggling in their faith? Or is someone you know about to take a leap of faith and enter exciting times? Who is God asking you to encourage right now? And I guess I would end the message today by again looking at the definition of exhortation, to call to one side. And encourage you today to call someone to your side with prayers and eyes on God. Offer the encouragement and fellowship that creates the wonderful bonds with eyes on God that keep people coming back here to Polson Community Church every Sunday.